Fake news media are masters at
burying the lead.
Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and this is Winnie the Westie, and this is some unfortunate news coming out of Canada as relates to football, but it works its way into a discussion that Joe Rogan just had with someone on his show, but it highlights the importance of how fake news media buries the lead, but how. From CBC News, sports, soccer, Canada Davies to miss 3 World Cup qualifying matches due to heart muscle issue after bout of COVID-19. 21-year-old ruled out after German club team detects signs of mild myocarditis. Now, full disclosure, I am merely a Montreal attorney. I am not a doctor. I do not dispense of medical advice. If you have any medical questions, consult with your doctor, although this does remind me of the old joke. What's the difference between a lawyer and God? God doesn't think he's a lawyer.
That's the joke.
I do not purport to give any medical advice whatsoever, full stop. I just know what I have read, and I have read in a number of places that there really is no such thing as mild myocarditis. You can have a more serious bout of myocarditis, but all myocarditis is very serious. But setting that aside, just get back to the headline. A famous soccer player is now sidelined for at least 3 matches because of heart issues, myocarditis, following a bout with COVID-19. And when I talk about burying the lead, wait till you see how this CBC article
buries the lead.
But before we even get there, I actually discovered something relatively interesting about the term bury the lead. From Merriam-Webster, since 1828, why do we, quote, bury the lead, end quote? We buried, quote, lead so far down that we forgot how to spell it. What to know? A lead is the introductory section in journalism, and thus to bury the lead refers to hiding the most important and relevant pieces of a story within other distracting information. The spelling of lead is allegedly so as not to confuse it with lead, which referred to the strip of metal which would separate lines of type. Both spellings, however, can be found in instances of the phrase. So with that interesting tidbit of information, now you are a little bit smarter, unless you already knew that, in which case,
good for you. I guess you knew something that I didn't.
Now back to the article. Canada Davies to miss 3 World Cup qualifying matches due to heart muscle issue after bout of COVID-19. Canada currently tops world qualifier. Davies has won 35 caps for Canada, registering 10 goals and 15 assists. Viewed as one of the finest left-backs in the world due to his pace and attacking flair, Davies plays in a more offensive position for Canada. The Canadian men, bidding to qualify for the World Cup for only the 2nd time ever, currently top the final round of qualifying in the CONCACAF, the soccer confederation covering North and Central America and the Caribbean, with a 4-0-4 record. They have 6 games remaining. Okay, I don't really follow soccer or sports at all for that matter, so this is interesting information. Just a few more details in the article. Come March, the top 3 teams in the 8-team round robin will represent North and Central America and the Caribbean at Qatar 2022. The 4th place team will take on Oceania country in an intercontinental playoff to see who joins them. Oceania? It's almost as if you could say that we've always been at war with Oceania. That is such a perfectly timed joke given the fact that we are literally living through an
Orwellian dystopia.
But those are a lot of details going over the general context of the story of a soccer player who apparently has to withdraw for the next 3 matches because he's suffering from myocarditis, allegedly according to the headline, due to COVID-19. So what's all this talk about burying the lead? For that, you have to read the caption under the headline photograph. Alphonso Davies to miss 3 World Cup qualifiers due to heart condition linked to COVID-19. Canadian soccer superstar Alphonso Davies will miss his next 3 FIFA World Cup qualifying matches after being diagnosed with myocarditis, a heart muscle condition linked to COVID-19. Davies, who is fully vaccinated, tested positive for COVID-19 in early January. And now you see where the CBC arguably buries the lead, in that the headline says that he got myocarditis after a bout of COVID-19. The article itself goes into a bunch of detail about other stuff, and it's only in the last line under the caption picture that they mentioned that he was fully vaccinated and contracted COVID-19. So the working theory here is that they definitively know that his myocarditis was triggered by his bout of COVID-19 and not by the vaccine, and my obvious question is,
how do they know that?
Again, just to cover my butt, I'm not making any medical affirmations here. I'm not making any medical statements, giving any medical advice. I just want to know how they definitively concluded that. Viva Frei at the Viva Frei, he is fully vaccinated, yet he's still got COVID. And, quote, experts, end quote, conclude his heart condition is linked to his bout with COVID-19 and not the vaccines. How exactly did the, quote, experts, end quote, divine this interpretation of causality? And in the tweet, I highlight the lead that the CBC buried. And yes, I recognize there could be a little snark in that tweet, although it's really intended to be more humor than than snark, although everything on Twitter and in the Twitterverse is read more with snark than humor. But the question remains, how on earth do the experts come to the definitive conclusion that the myocarditis resulted from his bout with COVID and not from the vaccines themselves? How do they know this? And some people would suggest that the answer to this question is answered by a video clip from a Joe Rogan podcast that recently went viral, where he was interviewing Josh Zepps, and Josh Zepps told Joe Rogan that more people within a certain age bracket get myocarditis from a COVID infection than from the vaccine itself. Joe Rogan wasn't so convinced. They pulled up an article, and lo and behold, it seems that Josh Zepps was right.
It's like a 2 to 4 fold increase in the instances of myocarditis.
Yes, but you know what?
Hospitalization.
You know that there's an increased risk of myocarditis among that age cohort from getting COVID as well, which exceeds the risk of myocarditis from the vaccine.
I don't think that's true. I don't think it's true. No. I don't think it's true that there's an increased risk of myocarditis from people catching COVID that are young versus increased risk of myocarditis from the vaccine.
No, there is.
12 to 17 more likely to develop myocarditis within 3 months of catching COVID at a rate of 450 cases per million infection. This compares to 67 cases of myocarditis per million at the same time following their second dose of Pfizer.
Yeah, so you're about 8 times likelier to get myocarditis from getting COVID than from getting the vaccine.
For the purposes of this vlog, knowing the limits of my own expertise, I'm not going to try to argue that study. I'm not going to try to contradict that study. I'm actually going to operate on the basis that that study is in fact accurate and that certain people of a certain age bracket are in fact more likely to get myocarditis from a COVID infection than from the vaccine. I have one question, however, whether or not that myocarditis from a COVID infection is the same type of myocarditis as that from a vaccine, but that's a separate question. I will operate on the basis that study is in fact accurate. I still have a question for Josh Zepps. Viva Frei at the Viva Frei. Question at Josh Zepps. Re your appearance on at Joe Rogan. Assuming you are correct that young people are more likely to get myocarditis from COVID than the vaccine, to the extent they still will contract COVID after vaccination, are they not compounding the risks of myocarditis? Appreciate that this question does not presuppose that I have any expertise that I recognize I do not have. This is just a question that I might ask in cross-examination. Okay, Josh, assume that you are correct and that you are more likely to get myocarditis from a COVID infection than from the vaccine. To the extent that people are still going to contract COVID after having gotten the vaccine, are you not, in fact, compounding the risks of getting myocarditis within a certain age bracket? Because it's not rocket science, and apparently it's no longer even controversial to acknowledge that people who get the vaccine can still nonetheless get the virus, and although the vaccine might reduce their symptoms, they can still nonetheless get the virus, as a lot of people are still doing.
The 2 doses of the vaccine offer very limited protection, if any. The 3 doses with a booster, they offer reasonable protection against hospitalization and deaths. Against deaths, I think very good. And less protection against infection.
And so a study showing that people of a certain age bracket are more likely to get myocarditis from COVID than from the vaccine, that really won't prove very much if they're still going to get myocarditis, unless there's a study out there that shows that the myocarditis you get from the COVID is somehow worse than the myocarditis you might get from the vaccine, and I'm not sure if there's a study to show that. Viva Frei at the Viva Frei, that at Joe Rogan clip. Even if true that the young are more likely to get myocarditis from COVID than from the vaccine, unless there's a study showing that people are less likely to get, quote, COVID myocarditis, end quote, after vaccination. Is there? They are only compounding the risk, not avoiding it. Not to say that Joe Rogan should or should not have apologized or may have prematurely admitted he made a mistake that perhaps he didn't. I still have a few more questions. The first of which is there a difference between the myocarditis that results from a COVID infection versus the myocarditis that results from a vaccine? The potential myocarditis. And the second question, which is basically the question I've been asking throughout this vlog, even assuming the study is true and correct, are you not just compounding the risks of getting myocarditis either from the vaccine and or from contracting COVID, even if you've been vaccinated, if you get COVID after being vaccinated? Josh Zepps, open question to you or any other medical professionals out there who might have an answer. And with that said, if you like my videos, you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm.
You don't win friends with salad. You don't win friends with salad.
If you want to support the channel, all of the support links are in the pinned comment. We've got some great merch. This is actually Style Boys, a Lonely Island shirt that my wife got me for Christmas. But if you want to catch Robert Barnes and I, we do weekly streams every Sunday. We do weekly streams with a guest every Wednesday called The Sidebar. You can also find us and support us on Locals, where supporters get lots of exclusive content at
VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com.
All of my content is also on Rumble, which has recently merged with Locals, so you can actually find a nifty little widget directly to our Locals community from the Rumble page, which I'll show you right now. But more important than anything, take care of yourselves, check in on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well, and now you know you vlog. Peace out.